Hey everyone, welcome to an NFL video. In this one, we are going value hunting. We can't play all the most expensive guys on one slate in the same lineup. It'd be great to play Mahomes, Kamara, Elliott, Juju Smith-Schuster, Michael Thomas, Sammy Watkins, Travis Kelce, all in the same lineup. But guess what? We cannot do that. So we need to scrape the bottom of the barrel here, find some value guys that I think can pop off, to pair them up with some expensive guys to get a nice stars and scrubs lineup. And if the scrubs hit and your stars hit, you're looking for a pretty nice day. So we're going to be going over my favorite value guys at each position. Anyway, before we continue, if you leave a like, if you're new to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It really helps me out. I really appreciate it. You can also follow me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16. And if you're looking at the spreadsheet that is behind me, or I guess sharing the screen with me, that is available on my Patreon. It's got everything you need on there: projections, rankings, cash game rankings, projected ownership I have loaded up on there, the matchup totals, Vegas, 2019 stats, wide receiver versus cornerback data. All of that is on there on my Patreon if you guys are interested. Link in the description below. Anyway, let's head over to Draftkings to talk about the guys that I'm going to plan on talking about today. So we're going to start off with the quarterback position, because that's where we have to start in every lineup pretty much. So obviously I like Mahomes. I've already talked about all the guys I've liked in my previous videos, but let's talk about Derek Carr, who is very cheap this week at 5,100. And so I love this game for fantasy. I much prefer the Chiefs side, but these Raiders are way too cheap. Darren Waller's too cheap, Tyrell Williams, Josh Jacobs, and Derek Carr included. And he looked really good last week versus the Denver Broncos in primetime. Now he gets it's not a soft matchup, but I mean, Kansas City defense isn't the best at all, and the Raiders should be in catch-up mode. And Mahomes is 7,500. Well, guess what? You can get the other quarterback for 5,100 in a positive game script where they're going to have to throw to keep up with that prolific offense. Derek Carr has had success versus the Chiefs last season, and he was, like I said, he was really good on Monday night. Completed over 80% of his passes. He's got some weapons. I know it would be a lot better if Antonio Brown was there for him, but still, Tyrell Williams is good. Darren Waller, Josh Jacobs, if they get him involved in the passing game. So I do think Derek Carr is in play at only 5,100. It's one of the higher Vegas totals on the slate, and they should be in catch-up mode. And if he plays as well as he did last week, I think he's in for a good day at only 5,100. He ranks out as one of the better values in my model. And the next guy I like at the quarterback position for cheap is, now these aren't my favorite plays. I remember that. These are just some value guys I like. I don't mind Josh Allen here. So he's 5,300 going up against New York, who got shredded by Dak Prescott and Amari Cooper and company. I know they're a little bit better than the Buffalo Bills, or a lot better, I should say. But Josh Allen is a great fantasy asset because he runs the ball. He had 10 attempts last week. Let me double check that. Yeah, he ran the ball 10 times last week. He got 38 yards, which is not very efficient, but still, I like Josh Allen. He gives you a safe floor because of his rushing upside. Now, is he the best thrower in the world? No. I mean, he's got a cannon for an arm, though, but still, he's not very accurate. He does turn the ball over, but Giants were trash last week versus the quarterback position. They do not have the best defense in the world, and Josh Allen can do it on the ground. And if he connects on a couple deep balls, possibly to John Brown, I think he can pay off for a nice fantasy day. So I'd like I like Josh Allen and Derek Carr as two value quarterbacks this weekend. Then at the running back position, it's obvious. You guys have heard me, or other people, if you watch other videos, everyone's talking about Josh Jacobs this week. He's basically a cash game lock just because of his price at 4,700. He is way too cheap. He is the bell cow back for the Raiders. They're going to look to establish the run. They're going to want to keep the ball away from the Chiefs as long as they can. And he looked really good last week versus the Broncos. He had 23 carries, 85 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 catch for 28 yards. If they can get him more involved in the passing game, that would be excellent because he's a capable pass catcher. And it would be a shame if they don't give him the ball more because he looks really, really good. So he's way too cheap, 4,700. He's pretty much a stone cold lock in cash games. If you want to get away from him in GPPs, if you don't think he's going to be involved in the passing game and the Raiders fall behind early, maybe he gets kind of game scripted out. I personally don't see it happening to a degree that's not going to let him pay off his salary at 4,700. He should be able to find himself into the end zone. But I do like Josh Jacobs, 4,700. He is a fantastic play. Now some cheaper guys. I like Chris Thompson at 3,900. Yeah, 3,900. I couldn't remember if it was 3,800 or not. But yeah, it's pretty much because Darius Geis is on the IR. I think they just announced that a little bit ago. I thought it might have been on my phone. But he's out. I mean, that's a guarantee. And Chris Thompson will see an uptick in usage, and I imagine they're going to fall behind versus Dallas, who's a much better team than them. And that means Chris Thompson will get some work in the receiving game because if they're going to have to play catch-up, they're not going to have Adrian Peterson out there to catch passes. He's going to be the, first and second down back. Chris Thompson will come in third downs, and if they're way behind, he'll be in the game a lot more. And he's great at catching the ball. He had, 10 targets last week, and that's pretty darn good for a running back. He had 7 catches for 68 yards. If he can do something like that again, at $3,900, he's going to pay off that salary, and he's an excellent complementary running back if you use like Alvin Kamara and Josh Jacobs, or if you want to go double expensive running back, and then you can punt with Chris Thompson. I think he's actually has a pretty safe floor this weekend. And then Devin Singletary, if I can find him. Oops. He is $4,200, a little bit more expensive than Chris Thompson, but he looked pretty good last week when he got the ball. He only had 4 carries though, but he had 70 yards. And he, like I said, he looked great. He averaged 17.5 yards per carry. He was on the field for 70% of the game. I know Frank Gore is still in the mix, and so is TJ Yeldon, but Devin Singletary is the best back in this backfield, and they shouldn't have too much of a problem versus the New York Giants, who do not have the best run D in the world. They lost Snacks Harrison last season, and I think they should be able to run on them. So I don't mind Devin Singletary as a punt. And then the last guy I want to talk about is Mostert, who gets the benefit of Tevin Coleman being out. He's only $3,800. He's a little bit cheaper than Chris Thompson. I mean, I'm not in love with the play, but he's not a terrible back, and Shanahan does support 2 running backs in the system. And last game, he had 9 carries, 40 yards, so he only had 1 target in the passing game, 1 reception, so Matt Breida is going to be the main guy here, especially in the passing game. But wouldn't be surprised if Mostert maybe got a touchdown and had a decent day on the ground versus Cincinnati Bengals, who are trash versus the run. Chris Carson just destroyed them, and last season they got destroyed the whole season versus running backs. So I don't mind going with Mostert as a more contrarian option because I imagine Chris Thompson will carry a lot more ownership, and he's only 100 more. Then at wide receiver, it's just like Josh Jacobs, and it's really obvious, but it's Tyrell Williams on the same team as Josh Jacobs. He's just way too cheap at $4,400. It's kind of a joke price. I know the pricing came out before the Monday night game ended, so or he would have been more expensive. I imagine he would have been in the mid 5K range, maybe close to 6K, but he's the number 1 receiver for Derek Carr. If I like Derek Carr and I like all of his if I like Derek Carr, I have to like all of his weapons, and I do like all of his weapons just because of their price tag. I don't think they're going to go absolutely nuts, but if they do, I can see it happening, and this could be a shootout. I know last season there was a shootout game versus the Chiefs. They both scored in the 30s. So, I love Tyrell Williams. He had 7 targets last week, 6 receptions, 105 yards, 1 touchdown. He's the number 1 receiver with AB being gone, and he's a pretty good receiver. He's got some talent. He was great in San Diego when he got the chance, or I should say LA. It's definitely like Tyrell Williams at $4,400. He's another stone cold lock for cash games. And see, throughout the week, I originally didn't have too much interest in Derek Carr, but then I'm liking all of his weapons, so that means I have to like Derek Carr, because if I like all of his weapons, I think they're going to have a good game. Derek Carr is going to have to have a good game. So definitely like Tyrell Williams. Next guy is Scary Terry McLaurin. Now, the only reason I like him is because he was on the field for 93% of the snaps last week, and that's pretty darn good if you compare that to some of the other rookies, like Hollywood Brown, barely played any, played less than 20% of the snaps. So he's going to be on the field. I imagine the Redskins are going to be trailing in this game. He should see enough volume to make it worth it. He had 7 targets last week, 5 receptions, 125 yards, and a long touchdown of 69 yards. So I think he's in play at only $3,800. He's really cheap. And then Deon Cain. Now, I'm not too confident in this play, but if you need an absolute bare minimum punt to fit in a bunch of big dogs, I don't mind him. He's only $3,800, and looks like he's questionable now. But let's just pretend he is going to play. Hopefully he does, because I think he's worth a dart throw in GPPs. Now, the only reason, if you have no idea who this guy is, I understand. Devin Funchess is out for the Colts for a long time. So Deon Cain should be the next guy up. He had 2 targets last week, 35 yards. I know that's not impressive, but he still should see more run this week with Devin Funchess being out. They can game plan him in a little bit more. So don't mind Deon Cain as a dart throw. I'm not saying put him in your cash games, and he's really risky for GPPs too, but he's a dart throw in the milli maker, and if he pays off, you're gonna have if a 3K guy pays off, then you're gonna have a pretty good day if your big guys end up beating. Then the next guy is John Ross, only because of the game he had last week. He looked pretty darn good, and no AJ Green, and new coach this season, part of Sean McVay's system, and he looked pretty good. And Andy Dalton didn't look bad either. The Cincinnati offense pretty darn good. And San Francisco really struggled with the wide receiver position last season. They only had 2 interceptions the whole season. Now I know they picked off Jameis Winston quite a few times, but I hope Andy Dalton is a little bit better than Jameis Winston was last week. John Ross had 12 targets, 158 yards, 2 touchdowns. I will say the 1 touchdown was kind of lucky because the defender had one of the worst jumps or attempts at the ball I've ever seen, and then John Ross just got behind him and caught an easy touchdown. But he's fast, and the new coach seems to want to implement him in the system way more than Marvin Jones did. Not Marvin Lewis. So I do like John Ross. He is a nice play at 4,600 versus the San Francisco defense, who really struggled with the receivers last season. And then we move on to the tight end position. We have Darren Waller. Probably not. So we have Darren Waller at 3,300, and he, like his other Raider teammates, is way too cheap this week at 3,300. He was on the field the entire game, played all his snaps, and the Raiders' offense is going to run through pretty much Josh Jacobs and Darren Waller. They love the tight end position. I'm not saying he's going to get all the target share, but he still had 8 targets last week, 7 receptions, 70 yards. If he can fall to the end zone and do the same exact thing he did last week, which I think he can versus the Chiefs, he's going to crush value. He's only 3,300, and if he can get you 14, 20 points, you are going to be extremely happy. He's a really athletic tight end, converted tight end, so receiver tight end. So Waller's got talent. I like him at only 3,300. He's going to be really popular, him and Kelsey. And then I like Mark Andrews for, what is he? 3,800. And again, he is going up against Arizona, who just got absolutely slaughtered by TJ Hawkinson, and he went nuts. And he's a rookie. Mark Andrews, he's got a lot of talent. He had 8 targets last week, 8 receptions, 108 yards, and 1 touchdown. I think Mark Andrews is a fine play going up against Arizona, who just got crushed. The Ravens offense looked great last week. I know they were playing Miami, but it was still a positive sign for how involved Mark Andrews was. I believe he played 42% of the snaps, but he was also in a blowout game, so we'll give him the benefit of the doubt there. And he's a good pass catcher, so I do like Mark Andrews. He's got talent. And then the next guy is going to be TJ Hawkinson at way down here at 3K. He's got a tough matchup versus the Chargers, but we can kind of look past that with the price he's at. There's no reason he should be 3K. He had 9 targets last week, 6 receptions, 131 yards, and a touchdown versus Arizona, which is kind of why I like Mark Andrews. But I will say the Chargers were first DVOA versus tight end position last season, which means they were the best in the league versus tight ends. So it's going to be a tough matchup, but at 3K, you do not need much here. And if you can cut that game they did last week in 3/4, it's still pretty good at 3K. So I would take that all day. Don't mind TJ Hawkinson at that value, but I'd really try to get up to Waller. He's only 300 more, and he's got a better matchup. And I mean, it's kind of a similar play, but he's just got the softer matchup. And then the defenses, no one likes talking about defenses, but we have to do it because we have to play a defense, unfortunately, on Draftkings. So I don't mind the Texans at 2,800. Now that is not going to be sneaky. They are playing Gardner Minshew, who I will say had a pretty good week 1, but I don't see it happening in Texas. Hopefully J.J. Watt and company can get to the quarterback, sack him a few times. Like I said, though, Minshew was pretty good last week, but I don't see him replicating that. Texans are only 2,800. They're going to be popular. Them and their Patriots are pretty much the cash game options. And then I also don't mind the Indianapolis Colts at 2,500 versus the Tennessee Titans. I know my Browns made the Titans look like an elite offense, but I don't really think they are. The Colts have a somewhat decent defense, so I think they are in play at only 2,500. Marcus Mariota doesn't scare me. I don't think Derrick Henry is going to go nuts again. I don't think he's going to catch another 75-yard screen pass for a touchdown. That was just infuriating watching last week. So don't mind the Colts defense. The Titans are still without Taylor Lewan, which is a downgrade for them. So don't mind the Colts. And then the Broncos versus Chicago. Mitch Trubisky looked absolute trash last week. They are playing in Denver, where the Broncos historically play really well there. They should have a solid defense this season, and like I said, Mitchell Trubisky does not scare me. Chicago seems like they don't want to use David Montgomery as much as they should, and he's their best running back. So the more Mike Davis they use, the better for the Broncos defense. The only really threat on here is Tariq Cohen and Allen Robinson, but I think the Broncos can have a fine game in Denver at 2,700. Anyway, guys, that's enough for the bargain hunting. I hope this was helpful for you guys, and I hope these plays help you guys to put them in your lineup, and then you can fit some big dogs in, and then you can have a nice stars and scrub lineup for GPPs. Anyway, I will see you guys in the next video. Wish you guys the best of luck. Link in the description below for my spreadsheet and extra content. Hit the like button. Remember to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.